of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
Happy New Year, y'all. I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
The calendar has turned over to 2024, but that definitely means that there's so much to talk about. Kind of a new year, new opportunities for the Sun Devils, not just on the football field. So it's probably a good time to take stock of where the ASU is right now and perhaps make some Sun Devil resolutions for the upcoming year.
Yeah, the 2023 calendar year had some ups, had quite a few downs for the Sun Devils. We've talked quite a bit about that year in review. So, yeah, we're going to look ahead here. New year, new us. We're going to take a look at some resolutions that we think that the Sun Devil fans should have, or Sun Devil athletics should have for 2024 to get things moving in a positive direction.
In addition, we're also going to talk to a couple of new Sun Devil linebackers, Zyrus Fiaseu and Jordan Crook, that a couple of big transfer portal additions that are bolstering that second line of the Sun Devil defense, as we talked about. A significant area of need, so you're going to hear from each of them a little bit later on. But let's dive into some news, Joe. And before we dive into football, some basketball. And Sun Devil athletics is not good for people with heart conditions, and that's especially true for the men's basketball team this past weekend. They're up in the Bay Area, fallen behind significantly in both games against Stanford and Cal. Some way, somehow, leaving the Bay with 2 conference wins.
Man, it was a pretty maddening way to end the 2023 year for Sun Devil basketball fans. But I guess all's well that ends well because, hey, at the end of the day, not every team went up to the Bay Area for that weekend series and came home undefeated, if you know what I'm talking about. So that's a good thing. As we always say, winning is good, right? So ASU, as you mentioned, pulled off 2 come from behind victories, first at Stanford, then at Cal. The end result is great. We'll see if it's sustainable because as you get into the thickness of the Pac-12 schedule, it's going to be difficult to get behind the 8 ball and shoot poorly and rebound poorly, but still come back. But once again, not going to put a dark cloud over these wins. That's a good thing for Bobby Hurley and company. So we'll see what we have. It has been it was an up and down non-conference slate for ASU, and as December wore on, there were some pretty rough defeats that ASU suffered, such as the likes at TCU out there in Fort Worth, Northwestern in downtown Phoenix, but they ended the year on a high note. Once again, not every team, especially in the state of Arizona, can say they did that, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, as a friend of the program, Doug Tamara likes to say, there's no such thing as an ugly win. You get there, especially on the road, and get a couple of wins. It's the second straight year ASU has started 2-0 in conference play, and the first time since 1987, 1988, in the 1988 season that the Devils have started 2-0 in Pac-12 or conference play, and with both of those wins coming on the road and, just kind of going along with that kind of cardiac Sun Devils theme so far, they're 4-0. In this season so far in games that are decided by 3 points or less. So they're going to take some years off your life, but in these close game situations, they're doing just enough to get the W.
Yeah, I saw some statistic. I didn't take it down, in great detail, but something to the effect that over the course of those 2 games last week, that ASU led for like 2.5 minutes. I think in Stanford, if I'm not mistaken, the only time they led in that game was at the end when they won. So again, doesn't matter if you lead for you can lead for 99% of the game, but if you blow it at the end, that's all that matters. So ASU is finding a way to win, and the hope is that as things move forward into this new year, that the Sun Devils can play more consistently. We've seen that in a number of sports at ASU. It's almost been kind of like a university-wide theme in some cases, where ASU almost seems to get most comfortable when it's behind, which is certainly an agonizing thing for the fan base. I remember, many years ago in football, that was just a thing that pretty much happened every single week, that ASU would play from behind, but then win some games. So again, it's not a sustainable way to go about business, but I'm not going to critique it or criticize it too terribly much, because when you get the wins, that's all that matters. But once again, when you get into some of the tougher games coming up, we'll see what this team is really about. They've had some success against some challenging teams earlier in the year in the non-conference play. But the come from behind thing, as exciting as it is at the end, once again, like I said, not sure how sustainable that is. So you want to see a little more consistency in both halves for ASU basketball.
Yeah, of course, getting Adam Miller back was big. Sean Phillips is back from the injury, so we'll see if some more time on the court and the chemistry can build. Obviously a ton of new pieces on the floor for the squad this year. It's kind of maybe par for the course these days in the transfer portal era. But again, we'll see exactly how if they can parlay these pair of come from behind wins into some better momentum going forward. And now switching gears back over to football, ASU has been. The 2024 class, as we covered in our prior episode, is kind of mostly signed up with signing day now firmly behind us, but ASU is getting some action on the 2025 side of things, landing a commitment from 3-star offensive lineman Matai Jefferson out of St. John's Bosco in California, obviously one of the powerhouses there. Sean Naa, for a Bosco alum that is currently on that Sun Devil offensive line. 6'4", 330 pounds, Joe. That's not too shabby.
Man, these coaches are getting some beef on the offensive line. You want to make sure that's good meat when they get their way to ASU, but that's a solid pickup. He had a small handful of offers, at least reported on Rivals.com, one of which from Texas, of course, just played in the college football playoff semifinal there. So this is a pickup that is looking good so far. Obviously, the better part of a full year to come and go before he's able to sign with Arizona State, but to continue that pipeline at Bosco, that's a big deal. And of course, at that position group of the offensive line, that is the area that Sun Devil fans have really been wanting ASU to make some strides, at least in this last several weeks of the transfer portal and the recruiting class for 2024. So when you get a name on that list that plays at that general position group, that's a good look.
All right, so looking at the transfer portal now as we record this, on the evening of January 2nd. This window of the transfer portal is going to be closing on Wednesday, January 3rd. Now, that means that players can't enter until it opens up for a 2 weeks period in the end of April. But players already in can, of course, commit and find their next destination. So one Sun Devil that had jumped in to the portal that we have not talked about yet that has landed at a new destination is former 4-star defensive back Sean Russ, who jumped in the portal, really never found a spot in kind of that Sun Devil backfield. He's heading to Bethune-Cookman, so drop it down a level to the FCS.
Yeah, he was one that obviously there was a lot of excitement for when he signed. He was in that high 3-star or 4-star category, and like Ashley Williams, who was a 4-star by many services, signed with ASU, and he opted to transfer, ended up at Louisiana. So now Russ is obviously out of the ASU program and out at Bethune-Cookman. That's a solid spot. We'll see how things transpire, if that's going to be a long-term commitment. And these comments I'm making, these are not any sort of knocks on Sean specifically. It's just kind of the nature of the beast these days in college athletics. Are we going to see him go down, to the FCS level, potentially maybe get some more playing time and then work his way back up to the Power 5 or the FBS level? Is that the strategy that a lot of folks do? We will see. But all the best to him. It's unfortunate that it couldn't have worked out here because, again, I remember about this time last year when we were talking about that 2023 class, Russ and Williams were two of the top names that we were most excited about, especially on defense. They were the top names. Now both of them are out of the program. It's just kind of what we got to get used to here, and we'll see how things go for him and the others who left the program as things move on.
So this episode certainly has a linebacker kind of feel to it with a couple of our guests, but also ASU's big commitment that we have not talked about or has happened since we last joined you. Linebacker Keyshawn Elliott, most recently of 10-win New Mexico State. He committed to the Sun Devils. He was a 6'3", 225-pounder, second-team All-Conference USA performer as a sophomore. 111 tackles, Joe, 10 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. Pretty good in coverage, 6 passes defended as well. So another good piece from that second level of the D.
Yeah, he didn't really mess around that much because he entered the transfer portal, that whole deal with Jerry Kill resigning and then a slew of New Mexico State players entered the portal and have since then, and ASU's on a few of them. And obviously, like you said, a 10-5 Aggie team, which is unbelievable for that program. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that they were one of the biggest doormats of college football. There they go, winning double-digit games. But Elliott, as you mentioned, well over 100 tackles. Yes, they played 15 games. A little bit easier to get there than those that are playing maybe 12 games, but still a highly, highly productive linebacker with a few years to play. I really like these moves that ASU is making at the linebacker position. I think that they've done an outstanding job in the transfer portal. When you're getting group of 5 players from the likes of San Diego State, now New Mexico State, and you got some from Arkansas that we'll talk about and obviously visit with here a little bit later. Really happy with what they're doing, which is a necessity. When you have the departures that they've had at linebacker, and as we've talked about many times, it's a position group that was quite thin last year to begin with. Very, very happy with what they're doing there. I think Elliott is someone that, again, he comes from a winning culture in New Mexico State. A weird thing to say, but it's true. And we'll see what he can do for ASU. But he's someone that has the proven credentials to be a highly productive linebacker at this level. I think that he'll be able to transition quite well to the Big 12. I am really training myself. I was about to say that P word once again, the Big 12.
Yeah, really kind of agree. I agree, definitely agree. I mean, what they've done at the linebacker spot has been both by necessity, but also very impressive in terms of what they have been. Of course, you have perhaps a potential rising star in Tate Romney. Caleb McCullough had some good moments last year. Kavion Thunderbird was a highly regarded true freshman last year. He looks like he has a chance to contribute. But then you bring in three guys with FBS experience, one Power 5, and then two guys absolutely tore it up at the G5 level a season ago. So you feel pretty good as you're heading into spring ball, and you'll kind of evaluate what you got there in year two of this Brian Ward defense, and then perhaps, if needed, maybe go shopping a little bit. But you got to feel pretty good with the acquisition so far. So it's probably a pretty good time to get to know some of them. I know that both you and I, Joe, are pretty excited about this guy's potential. Zyrus Fiaseu coming over from San Diego State, where he was not just the defensive MVP for the Aztecs, but the team MVP. So they had a chance to catch up with him and get to know what he's all about. All right, Zyrus, obviously you go back and you're coming off a monster season. You jump in the portal. What were the things that you were looking for in your next destination, and how did Arizona State check those boxes for you?
Yeah, so when I hopped in the portal, I was just looking for basically for a bigger stage to help out me and my family. I don't come from a lot, so I just wanted to make sure, I have a bigger stage to set myself for the future. Because obviously the end goal is the NFL. And, I was always brought up the school doesn't make you, you make the school, you make the player, the type of player you are. But then with day and age now, I just felt like it was a better choice. I prayed on it. Thought about it for a long time since the end of the season, since Coach Hoke announced his retirement. I think the week Colorado State, and I just kept thinking about it. And signs led me to hitting the portal, and right when I hit the portal, Arizona State was right there. Literally, they were trying to call me actually to offer me, but I was on the plane back home already. But right when I got off the plane, I was waiting at passenger pickup to get picked up by my older brother, and Coach Ward called me and he was like, "Hey, just getting straight to it, we want to offer you." And then straight from there, they just showed a tremendous amount of love. The love was just unbelievable that they showed, and my mom loved it, my family loved it, and I just felt like it was the best choice for me.
So then, of course, you come out here on an official visit and get to see things kind of in person, up close, meet those folks in the building. What jumped out to you most, and what made the deepest impression on you during that visit?
Yeah, so when we took a visit, they're just all the facilities that they have. Their football facility was just for football, so you didn't have to share with other sports. The nutrition bar was amazing. They have a little cafeteria that I loved. The campus, we were riding around campus, and we're driving around on the golf cart for 15, 20 minutes, and I'm looking around and I'm like, we're still on campus? And they're like, yeah, no, this is one of the biggest campuses there is. And I was like, oh, I did not know that. And so the place was just beautiful. I didn't know what to expect when I came to Tempe. When I went to Tempe, I was like, maybe it's just a bunch of cactus and tumbleweeds and all that. And, I knew it was a desert, just like Las Vegas, where I'm from, but I didn't expect it to look, like it did. And it was just a beautiful place. And I fell in love with it when I went over there.
When you got to be there and kind of around the guys, around the coaching staff, what was kind of your read on kind of the vibe and the culture that Kenny Dillingham is trying to install here in Tempe with the Sun Devil program?
Yeah, no, you can just tell that he wants to build that program up. Even though they didn't have the season that they wanted last season, that happens with everybody with injuries and, just stuff that goes on. And, the coaching staff was just great. I mean, he likes to keep everything in-house, a bunch of them are from Arizona. A bunch of them want to be there. So, coaches wanted to be there and loving it, some of them being their dream jobs. I mean, that just tells you right there that, the team is just going to go up from there. And so these coaches were just amazing to me. These coaches were great. They seemed truthful, and I can't wait to get started with them.
In your time just getting to know Kenny Dillingham, what's your kind of impression of him as, obviously a younger guy, but a younger head coach, but what's your view on him in terms of a leader of a major college football program?
Yeah, no, he's a great coach and he's a great guy. Um, what do you call? I feel like he connects with the players. He was connecting with me the whole time I was there. Since like you said, he's a younger mind, which is cool to me because I've played around coaches who are just like just a bit older, a bit older school, or old school. But Coach Dillingham, he was great. I mean, like I love talking to him. I mean, he walked around and he's trying to get to know everybody, and he talked to me. He came to my house actually on what do you call, a couple weeks ago, and it was just cool talking to him. He's just a great guy, and I just felt like, with what he's trying to build, I just wanted to be part of it.
And then, of course, getting to know your position coach, AJ Cooper, a guy who obviously knows his defense very well, going back with Coach Ward to his time at Wazoo. What kind of stands out about your future position coach and Coach Cooper, and what you learned about him during the recruiting process?
Yeah, so actually on our visit, we had a little bit of football time just to talk about football. It was no more of eating good and talking about this and that. It was really just got down to football. And Coach Cooper, he just knew what he was talking about. He was a guru. He literally picked out things that he wanted me to fix, but things that he already liked. And so when I was talking to him, I just felt like, nah, like I'd run through a wall for this guy, and it was just like a little bit of tasting of how he coaches and type of man he is. And, Coach Cooper is a guy that, I'm glad to be under now.
When in talking football and getting to know this Sun Devil defense under defensive coordinator Brian Ward, obviously it's a scheme that really seems to be aggressive in bringing the fight to an offense. What jumps out to you about the scheme, and also how your skill set fits in with what they ask of the linebackers?
Yeah, so when we were learning about defense, it what really was cool to me is a lot of NFL teams running, which is good because like for me, it'll just be kind of an easy transition if, God willingly, I make it to the NFL. And so the schemes they free up the linebackers real easily with a good D line. They eat up gaps, and as long as I can run sideline to sideline and make the plays I'm supposed to make and do my job, I think I'll fit right in with the defense.
For any Sun Devil fans might not have seen you in action for the Aztecs, give our listeners and viewers a self-scouting report. What skills and what should they expect to see from you once you're out on the field in the maroon and gold?
Oh, well, first, you're just going to know I'm going to do my job. That's the most important thing to me, is making sure that, I'm not above the team, and that they can get everything out of me. I'm going to play hard for the Sun Devils. I'm going to make sure, I know mentally I'm going to be there. Physically, I'm going to be there. And I'm just going to be where the ball's at. And that's just the way I play.
In a recent interview, you kind of described your style as running back without the ball, and of course, you have a history, playing some offense in your prep days. How do you feel that that kind of mentality has maybe helped shape you and led to that success that you're having on the defensive side?
Yeah, so in high school, basically all the way up to my senior year, I played way more running back than I played defense. If I was to go to defense, I'd play like a nickel back or a free safety. So transitioning to linebacker when I got to San Diego State was like probably one of the hardest things for me to do, because at first I couldn't flip my hips. I wasn't hitting 300-pound like dudes like all day every day, so like it was a little different. And then so I was like calling my dad every day, and I'm just like, yo, like I don't know, man, like this linebacker stuff is kind of hard. And he kind of explained to me like, hey, just start playing running back just without the ball. Find the open holes, see what you're supposed to see on the other side, but, do it defensively. And since then, it kind of just opened up my eyes, and it made it a little easier for me. Well, a lot easier, actually.
And, obviously, of course, led to some huge numbers last year. Just one of those those seasons where just like every stat category you were filling that all across. What were some of the keys for you to kind of make that big time jump into the success that you had in 2023?
Yeah, so coming into San Diego State, you had great linebackers. You had Katie McDonald, Andrew Leckie, Sergio Lakalaka, Saguna Luby, Michael Shawcraft. You had a bunch of those guys. And so, just being a young cat, just watching them play, like, I was sitting there waiting for my turn. So second year came and I got my turn for half the season, and then getting to 2023, it was just full go. I knew that I could take over the defense. I knew that everything could revolve around me, being the leader of that defense, and so I just stepped up and took the reins and just went from there and just did my job, and basically I just had a pretty good season. I mean, hopefully I could do better this next season.
And of course, that pretty good season resulted in team MVP honors for you as well. What did that kind of mean to you? Obviously, you kind of put in a couple of years and learning a new position, as you mentioned, and then ultimately just kind of being the named the most valuable Aztec last year.
Yeah, it was a blessing to get it. I wasn't really expecting it. Just a defense player getting it just it didn't seem likely, but I'm blessed to have the teammates that I have around me. A bunch of them, they're my brothers now. So them voting me, it was just a blessing. I loved it. I cherish it, and just I'm glad to have it.
Now, when you're looking ahead to the future here in Tempe, obviously this is going to be year 2 under Kenny Dillingham, and you kind of have an understanding of what he's trying to build here, and kind of this is a process. How appealing is it to you to be kind of in on that ground floor and be kind of a foundational piece, building towards his vision of what Sun Devil football can be?
For me, I'm just another piece of the puzzle for him, which is, some people might take it the wrong way, but like for me, I'm trying to build it too. Hearing what the plan that they have for this program, they're taking a chance on me, which is something that I love, and so I want to build it with Coach Dillingham too, and I want to be a part of the foundation. I want to, bring myself into their culture and bring my game and help them win games and help them win the championship.
You're also, of course, a part of the, they're bringing in a lot of Polynesian players, and kind of they put out the poly pipeline graphic, and seeing the emphasis on bringing those players and that culture in as a key foundational part of this program. What does that mean to you in terms of, obviously, on top of everything else on the football side?
Yeah, it's great to have other Polynesian players around you. They know how you grow up culturally. They know your values, your customs, traditions, and everything. So having them around, having Polynesian brothers around you just makes it a lot easier.
And you're a Vegas guy. You're coming from Nevada. The kind of the desert life, but after a couple years in San Diego and just the vibe and the lifestyle out there, it's going to be a little bit hard to come back to the heat of the desert.
Yeah, at first, yeah, like because I always joke about this with my family, but like San Diego weather makes you soft. When I used to come home for summer break, I couldn't handle it, and it was only like 90 degrees, and 90 degrees to them, they're like, oh heck yeah, it ain't 110, but for me, I'm like sweating, and I'm trying to make sure I stay inside in the AC. So, I mean, at first it's gonna be a transition, but once I get back to it and realize I did it my whole life, then I should be all right.
Now, you're not the only Aztec cuts coming over to Tempe. Give our listeners and viewers kind of a scouting report on what to expect from tight end Cameron Harpole.
Oh, he's a dog. That's my boy right there. We actually roommates this past summer, and so when you're roommates, you get to talk to people. You get to talk to your roommates a lot, and so I think Cam is going to bring some hype to the offense. He can catch, he can run, he can block. So you can expect great things from Cam.
So looking ahead to kind of the linebacker room, obviously they have a couple guys who are coming back, but also some new additions like yourself join in. When you kind of look at this this group of 2024 Sun Devil linebackers, what kind of jumps out to you?
Yeah, I haven't met any of them yet, but seeing the way they play and seeing some of the videos and things that I've seen, I'm excited to play with them. I mean, I think we're going to have a great linebacker room, especially under Coach Cooper, Coach Ward calling the plays. And so with them coming in and I'm coming in too, I'm excited to, compete. I'm excited to play with them, and I'm excited to see, how we can make this defense a little better.
So also looking ahead to this upcoming 2024 season is going to be the first for you as a Sun Devil. What are the things that you really most want to accomplish in year one?
Honestly, for the spring, I just want to learn the defense. I want to learn the ins and outs. I want to know what everybody's doing. And then when the season comes, I just want to play ball. I want to, make sure my name is out there, my last name. I just really just want to, I don't really care about all the hype, but I do care about, making a name for myself. And so that's just one thing that I want to do this season.
Now you I believe all the other FBS transfers coming in or have multiple years of eligibility. So obviously you stated that the goal is ultimately to get to the NFL. But over the couple of years or however long you have remaining at the college game, what are the things that you want to make sure that when your college career wraps up, you've achieved?
First and foremost, I want to win the championship. I won championships all youth football, won one in high school, and coming into college, I've always wanted to win one for whatever team I was going to. So first, I really want to win championship, especially with the culture that they have and what they're trying to build. I want to make sure I can come in and help them do what this team needs to do. And secondly, I just want to have fun. Just going to a new city. It's everything's new. That was like my first time being in Tempe, so I just want to go out there, have fun, and enjoy life while also playing some ball. Can't complain about getting treated the way we get treated, and also playing ball and living out there for free, basically. So I just want to be out there, have fun.
All right, 2024 means a new chance for the Sun Devils across all sports to make big strides and have a big year ahead. So it's probably a good time for us to, I think, as this has become somewhat of an annual tradition here on the show, to make some Sun Devil New Year's resolutions.
When you transition from December to January, from one year to the other, it's natural to reflect, to think about the things that happened over the course of the past year, the things that went right, the things that went wrong, areas to improve, things that you want to maintain, basically how you can improve yourself, make it a new year, new me. So for this, it's going to be new year, new ASU. And like a lot of folks, when they're making New Year's resolutions, what's the first thing that they want to focus on? Talking about health, whether that's physical health, mental health, whatever it may be. And hey, that's a very noble thing, something I'm passionate about as well. On a personal level, when we're shifting into talking about them Sun Devils, health on the football field, yeah, that's the number one resolution, because we saw a slew of injuries, and we thought like 2016 was bad, which it was when it comes to injuries. 2023 kind of had a hold my beer type situation going on when you saw all of those guys playing quarterback, when you saw all those offensive line alignments shifting around every single game, something different. That was chaos, and that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to ASU's health issues. Last year, we saw it on special teams, saw it pretty much across the board. Now, obviously, it's not like you can just say, hey, we're going to be healthy this year and make that happen. There isn't so much that you can control in that regard, but sometimes you got to kind of leave it up to fate and faith. And in this case, you got to have the hope that ASU can be healthier on the football field in 2024 if it wants to stand a chance at climbing up that ladder a little bit and improving matters within the program.
They almost have to be, just by the law of averages, because they were just so ravaged. I mean, we covered all season long, whether it was at quarterback, where you had a program record 5 different guys make starts, or of course probably most pronounced along the offensive line, and forcing the coaching staff to get weird, to get creative. But it's also some key injuries on the defensive side of the ball that really, some that probably took a pretty significant toll late on in the year. You just want to see the Sun Devils just be able to play to their potential, because I think if ASU had some decent to average injury luck last season, maybe they make a run at a bowl, because they had a number of those close games, as we talked about. But that's neither here nor there. So hopefully going forward in the future, they're able to get just at least, just typical average season injury luck, because I think that with some of the pieces that they've bringing back, some of the pieces they've added through the portal and through the signing class, if these guys can stay healthy, they could probably make for a pretty fun season. And another way to do that, Joe, get some turnovers. Just take what isn't yours, because for up until the last few games of the season, Sun Devil defense was pretty good, top to bottom. We obviously saw Washington, make their way to the national championship game. Well, we just got to think back a couple months where that same Sun Devil defense kept them out of the end zone entirely, kept them under 300 yards of total offense. Pretty good unit. Just they were not getting turnovers. It was just weird, because they weren't playing bad defense. They were playing good defense. And it's such an outlier and anomaly that you think that they just have to, especially with some of the pieces they've added, just be starting to be more of ball hawks in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that Washington game, and was that, I'm going off memory, was that where the first turnovers were forced, or were there others before that? Do you recall?
I
off the
think they
top
might
of
have
your
had.
head.
I think they had one throughout the first half, and then they had 4 against the Huskies, and then they might have had just one or one down the stretch. Because it was like I think there's only 3 or 4 games in which there was any turnovers registered.
Yeah, and even that Washington game, that was deep into the month of October. I remember it was the same weekend as the league championship series in the sport of Major League Baseball. There are a lot of things that happened in the fall of 2023 that I associate with Major League Baseball because that was a bright spot, at least in my world. But yeah, to the point of that, you got to find a way to generate more turnovers because we'll see what the matchups bring about in the Big 12 next year in terms of just where ASU is able to compete with its opponents. Of course, in 2023 in the Pac 12, there were some very good teams. And so ASU just didn't have necessarily the talent to match up with every team that it played. Now, a good way to kind of bridge that gap is to force turnovers. We've talked about it on and on and on. And that's something that kind of you can put into a similar context as like health from our previous point about like how can you coach a team to be healthy? How can you really coach a team to force turnovers? A lot of those are just right place at the right time, or just executing impeccably and forcing a fumble, or just being there for an interception or tip balls, whatever the case may be. So there is some luck involved, but there's also execution. And when you put the whole thing together, ASU just simply needs to get better at that because until we see ASU get that talent on the roster just to be able to go, man to man, toe to toe, line up against the opposition and have a good chance at winning, you got to take plays away from them.
And switching over to the offensive side of the ball, obviously, other than having healthy quarterbacks and linemen, ASU needs to do a much better job this upcoming year in generating the big play. They ranked 107th amongst the 133 FBS teams this past season in yards of 30-plus from scrimmage. Not great. And obviously, you have some very talented playmakers, but your top 2 running backs last year, Cam Scadaboo and DeCarlos Brooks, not exactly Blazers kind of, home run threats. Those are big, powerful backs that can definitely move the chains and be big-time contributors for you, but not necessarily the kind that once they get out in space, they're going to bust off huge gains. And then, of course, with the offense, given the situation with the quarterback injuries, Trenton Bourguet himself being banged up, the offensive line, the downfield passing game really never got on track, and a lot of the stuff was just the quick game. So you'd like to see with some of the pieces with, Badger presumably coming back, Xavier Guillory perhaps being healthy, Jake Smith now going to be eligible. You're adding Raleek Brown to that backfield, Jason Brown through the signing class. Some of these guys with that different gear that if you can get them in space, give them a crease, they can reel off those big game-changing plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all things considered, the Sun Devil offense certainly should get better. I know that might seem like it goes without saying, but it's worth saying. You get the quarterbacks healthy, you get some more bodies in there that can contribute in terms of big plays and other explosive plays on offense. So there certainly should be improvements. And going back to something that you mentioned, I think a lot of that last year and why there were issues with that last year, you focus that just about 100% on the quarterback issues. There were health issues. You're just having guys that are playing that are either not 100% or had big gaps in time, like in the case of Jaden Rashad, who played those first couple games. And the last one, that's a big stretch of time, especially for a true freshman. So as you get players, they get a little bit more comfortable in this system, get them through spring ball, through fall camp, just acclimate to what Kenny Dillingham and what new offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo want to do. That's going to enable ASU to have more explosive plays. And like you mentioned, bringing in guys like Raleek Brown specifically, he's going to be one that kind of like we were talking about Cam Scadaboo at this time last year, thinking about what's this guy going to do in the fall, really intrigued by him on offense. I'm sure Raleek Brown is going to top that list for a lot of people, us included. And when we're talking about impact plays and impact players, just kind of like how in New Year's resolutions, how you want to cherish the people that are in your life that are meaningful. You don't want them to slip away. You want those relationships to become closer bonds through the new year. You know what I'm saying? In the context of Sun Devil football, you want to see that happen in the sense of not having any more impact players leave this program via the transfer portal. All things considered, and we're in a weird spot where we're recording right now, Brad, because we're recording here on Tuesday evening, and Wednesday is the closing of the transfer portal. So we want to say and knock all the wood that exists that so far, ASU, generally speaking, you got to be pretty happy with the amount of players that have entered the transfer portal. they kind of might have thought that there'd be a larger crop of players that did so. Now there are some impact players, the likes of the BJ Green, Jalen Conyers, Jordan Clark, that have left the program. At this point, you just kind of need to mitigate the damage and not have any more impact players leave, whether it's, here within the next like 24 hours or even in that spring period as well.
Yeah, and I think a big way to make sure that the roster is pretty much intact, at least in terms of the guys that you want to keep around, is you got to do right by the players on the NIL front. I know a lot of fans are kind of, still kind of, a little upset about just how this new era, a new reality of college football is, but it is an arms race, as much as Ray Anderson may not have wanted to admit all those years back. But ASU has been behind the gap, behind their peers. They have made some strides in recent months, especially since the resignation of Ray Anderson. But there's still a lot to be done, and if you want to be able to bring in quality guys, and even go back to last year, perhaps most importantly, retain those guys, as to your point of just making sure there isn't like an Elijah Badger or another guy of that caliber jumping in the portal in that April window. You got to make sure that they're happy and taken care of.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there have been strides in that regard. There's not a ton of transparency, nor do we really expect there to be in terms of like dollar amounts that have been raised, or what is the pool of capital that ASU has to work with in the NIL space. But on a general scale, we certainly know that there have been improvements. We know that there's a program in place of matching donations through the spring game. So yeah, as far as that spring transfer portal window in terms of both sides, preventing impact players from leaving and to be able to bring in some impact players, that element certainly needs to be there. So it's encouraging that there have been strides in the NIL front from that time period you mentioned in early November when Ray Anderson stepped down and really ignited the fan base. So the present day, there have been improvements. We need to see continued improvements basically from now through that, time period, whenever that spring game may be. I'm not sure if the dates are out yet, but when that occurs, March, April, whenever it may be, you want to see some continued progress so that ASU can have that stability and growth at the same time. Keep your key players, bring in some new ones as well. As part of that, feeds right into another resolution here. You want to make new, important, impactful relationships. You want to network a little bit in the new year. That's the thing that a lot of folks are going to do as resolutions, right? So, of course, ASU football, you want to find some high caliber performers in that transfer portal. We've talked about it several times. At this point, you're happy with what they've done in a lot of regards. We just mentioned a few moments ago about what they're doing at the linebacker position, but you want to find quality linemen on both sides in what remains of the transfer portal in these coming months. Offensively, you really want to try to make some progress at the offensive tackle positions. You feel pretty good, I think, about some of the interior positions. Kind of the opposite on defense. You feel good about the edge rushers. You want to get some of those interior linemen. Like ASU has had great success in the last couple of years with the likes of Deshaun Mallory last year, Nesta Jade Silvera the year before. You want to have that hit a trifecta and get another impact interior lineman or multiple.
Yeah, you can never have enough depth at there. We just saw the ASU's issues last year come to light. Now, looking on offense first, Bram Walden showed some flashes when he was spelling Isaiah Glass at left tackle, and you figure he might get first crack at that job whenever he is able to get back healthy. Emmett Boley is coming back after suffering that unfortunate injury a season ago, but you like the addition so far through transfer portal, but most of those guys seem to right now project to the interior. So if you can get some more talent at those tackle spots, that would be really a huge boost for the Sun Devils. And then you switch over defense. I totally agree. You'd need some beef on the inside, in the interior. This defense works so much better when you have kind of a game record like a Deshaun Mallory getting out there. Can CJ Fight be that guy in year two? Take that big step after his kind of very promising true freshman season. We'll see, but you need more quality bodies there. Now, of course, easier said than done. Going back to the NIL front, just about every team in America could use quality offensive and defensive tackles. So those guys are at a premium. We'll see if some guys are, are maybe a little unsatisfied with their spot at their current schools, and ASU is able to swoop in April and make a big score. But kind of going back to the earlier point, it's going to cost a little bit out of the checkbook.
Now, when folks are making their New Year's resolutions, obviously they're going to look back on the past year. and see what areas that they're maybe proud of themselves, where they really executed in their lives, and then also identify areas where there's a need for improvement. It's about being real honest with yourself. And I think that's something that Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devil coaching staff can do as well. You want to learn from year one. This was a trial by fire in every capacity. That's why we repeatedly and honestly called it a year zero for Kenny Dillingham. And as he turned that page into what we'll call year one, 2024, you want to identify what areas that you need to make some adjustments. We saw a lot of risks that were taken, a lot of creativity that was used in 2023 under Kenny Dillingham. A lot of it was by necessity and not, I'm sure, by desire, in the sense of when you got a lot of injured quarterbacks, you got to throw position players out there, or you got to mix things up on special teams, or you got to swing that gate all the time. So I think as Dillingham and staff look back on 2023, you want to identify areas along those lines where you can continue to be risky, continue to be creative, but not so much that you saw last year. And I'm sure, I would imagine that if Kenny Dillingham were here, that he would say a similar thing. I doubt that he would want to use those sort of things as frequently as they were used, especially as the season wore on. But again, you don't want to eliminate that entirely, because you want to bring that chaos, that craziness that basically made Kenny Dillingham who he is in the stops at Florida State, Oregon, and elsewhere. So it's kind of about finding that perfect balance on when to get weird and when to kind of keep it a little bit traditional.
Yeah, right after the UCLA game, Kenny Dillingham told us in the press conference that if I'm still doing this stuff in year 3, you should fire me. Because that a lot of this stuff that we saw, just kind of the weirdness, the swinging gate, the formations, the Hellcat, the having 5 different guys start a game at quarterback, was a lot due to just necessity and just kind of the weird nature of just having a roster so battered and beleaguered by injuries. But you'd like to see that, with these kind of cutting edge offensive minds. That's why Kenny Dillingham got the job. That's why Kenny Dillingham has had the success that he's had. You want to see them just be able to do these things by a choice, not because of their backs against the wall and that they have to do some of these things. So, but going back a couple episodes in our feed, and we had the roundtable with Hode and Caleb talking about just kind of how the Kenny did in year 1, and we each gave him pretty promising grades, even though it certainly wasn't perfect. There were a lot of missteps, as to be expected with the first-year head coach, but he does seem like a smart guy, so we'll see exactly how many of these he's able to kind of internalize and kind of, and kind of post-mortem the year and come away with some actionable items to come and be a better coach and put together a better season here in year 2. And hopefully that year 2 will involve, of course, a bowl game, because I do think that ASU, as weird and wild and unfortunate season as they had, they were so close. I mean, if they're just flipping a couple of games, Cal was close, Colorado was close, and of course, we go back to the what ifs surrounding Washington. All of a sudden, a 3-9 kind of down year becomes a really heartfelt kind of 6-6 bowl eligible, but obviously not going to a bowl type of season. So I think with average, even improved health luck there, with some of the new pieces that we've talked about in terms of adding impact guys through the portal, it's not exactly outside the realm of possibility that you're going, especially when you're going to a Big 12, which is competitive, but I don't think necessarily the caliber that we've seen in recent years, especially this past season in the Pac, that the path to the postseason should be there for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, as you mentioned, some Sun Devil fans may just look at the 2023 season as just this big pile of chaos and not see the forest for the trees. But when you do break it down in that way, yeah, you see a handful of games to where ASU was not that far off from winning, anywhere from 1 to 3 or even 4 more games if all the stars align. And I know that argument can be used for just about any team in the country. It's like, well, if you lose a close game, you could have won that. You could, you can what if your way to being undefeated in many cases. But yeah, like you talked about with ASU, there were some close games that ASU played just with players that were incredibly banged up, a lack of depth, some star players that were in and out of the lineup, just a lot of chaos, to where, again, if just a few bounces go ASU's way, we're looking at a much different outcome. Now, of course, they could have went undefeated and they still wouldn't have made the postseason due to that self-imposed postseason ban that was announced in August, but they weren't that far off from winning 5, maybe 6 games. And as you move things forward toward 2024, I think with this fan base, you really have to get to that point. And I know that may be a lofty expectation. You talked about the Big 12, another component. I've seen you talk about it or tweet about it, Brad. Is that ASU's non-conference schedule is pretty daunting next year. I mean, you've got some teams that did some things even from the Group of 5 level. So ASU is going to be challenged in that early schedule, and that's going to be an important part that I'm sure we'll talk about, as these months go on. If you're going to get to bowl eligibility, if you want to make it a successful season in 2024, if you really want to be able to look back on it a year from now and say things are going in the right direction, hard stop on that statement. One thing that's just got to happen. You got to get back that territorial cup. Now, I get that Arizona, one of the most improved teams in the nation in 2023. And we'll see what 2024 brings for them. But getting that cup back, certainly going to be a challenge. That game's going to be down in Tucson again. That's a greater challenge. But it's something that just needs to happen. You've had back-to-back losses in that series for the first time in a while. And if that goes to 3 straight, I think that'll be the first time that ASU will have lost 3 consecutive games since sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. We're talking about like a 30-year stretch where that has not happened. So I think, for all things to come together with positivity, that's got to happen. Again, it's a loftier expectation than it was even just a couple years ago when Arizona was a doormat, not just of the Pac-12, but really on a national scale. So it's going to be a big challenge that ASU is going to have to rise to. But I think that that's something that is just a need if you're really going to say after 2024 that things are truly moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's going to be daunting, as you said, not only the fact that it's going to be on the road, but probably against a team that's going to be entering next year as a preseason top 15, heck, maybe even a top 10 if they're able to kind of bring those key players back that have remaining eligibility, because that's a pretty impressive job that Jed Fish has done down there. But especially with a Sun Devil alum at the helm of the program like Kenny Dillingham, he understands how crucial and how dire the need is for ASU to get back on track in this rivalry, to, as you mentioned, not let something that hasn't happened in multiple decades happen on his early watch. So getting that cup back, getting bowling amongst all the other points that's what we mentioned is going to be absolutely essential for the Sun Devils moving forward into 2024 and then potentially beyond. So as we kind of close out, or look ahead and perhaps pull back a little bit on the big picture scale, because we talked about, the football program, but, of course, there's a lot of stuff going on in the Sun Devil athletic sphere in 2024. Perhaps most pronounced, the search for the AD as we record this continues.
Yeah, it was early November. Gosh, it's been about 2 months now since that happened, right? I mean, that time has kind of flown by. From when Ray Anderson stepped down. Of course, many of us have thrown out names of maybe preferred candidates, but it has been complete radio silence. I mean, nobody's even really talking about candidates or interviews. I mean, I could tell you right now, I have no idea where things are, in this process right now. That may not necessarily be a bad thing, but it just seems like if there are things happening, which I think that there are, it's happening behind closed doors, maybe some secrecy to that. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. I think with this hire, now obviously there were some crucial moves for Sun Devil Athletics that happened each and every one of the last couple years. Not all of them have been under of the good variety when it comes to like the NCAA violations that allegedly occurred back there in 2020, and then the fallout from that in 21, Herm Edwards being dismissed in 22 or stepping down, whatever the technical transaction was there, and now Ray Anderson stepping down in 2023. You have those dominoes that have all pretty much fallen down now from just the chaos that occurred during the COVID pandemic there. So now as you move things forward, you look at who will be the next athletic director. We don't know who it will be, but I know that we can talk about some qualities that we certainly hope that he or she will have. And I truly believe that this doesn't need to be one of those outside the box hires that we've seen on more than one occasion at ASU, even as it pertains to the athletic director position. I think you just need to really keep it simple as it can be, and focus on some of the main qualities, the main elements that ASU needs to improve. And to me, that can really be summed up in a few things. First and foremost, NIL and fundraising. I mean, they go hand in hand, and that is just simply the most important element of college sports right now. I mean, it is what it is. A lot of us don't love it, but it, once again, is what it is. And you've got to have your leader participate in that, be knowledgeable about that, to have the ability to fundraise. And it basically just needs to be the polar opposite what we heard last time around with this whole we're not going to get in the arms race stuff. I ain't going to cut it anymore. That's a good way for Sun Devil Athletics just to completely tank. Now, on top of that, I think that it would be valuable for the new athletic director to have those PR skills, kind of those political skills to endear him or herself with the Sun Devil fan base and rebuild those relationships that may have been severed under the previous administration, especially as it pertains to kind of like your average Joe Sun Devil fan. I'm one of those myself, but kind of your everyday fan, maybe not your big dog boosters, the ones that might get the cheap tickets, but they're there. You know what I'm saying? So again, a lot rides on this AD hire, and especially what skill set that person brings to the table.
And a large component of that ultimately is going to be for this fan base, this community, the boosters, the alumni base, all Sun Devils everywhere to get involved to a greater degree, because that's just simply the way that things are in college athletics in this NIL era now. Obviously, we'll see exactly how things shape out, and all the pending litigation, legislation, things out there that could also radically shape this sport yet again. But right now, ASU needs to have all these folks that have perhaps been on the fence in recent years and maybe not wanting to get involved or donate with Ray Anderson or the leadership with the school and the athletic department to start putting some of that money and the actions where their mouth is, and to get ASU to unlock that potential to, if they're ever going to have a chance to awaken that sleeping giant, the involvement and the action from this base, this very large, vast base of Sun Devils everywhere, needs to step up.
I may say it until I am blue, purple in the face. When it comes to college athletics, especially in the here and now, but historically as well, it cannot be a wait and see approach. And far too often, when it comes to the Sun Devil community, it is just that. And then even some cases, and I'm not trying to be too terribly critical, just observing what I've seen over the years, there's some cases where even when that event happens, the event that needed to happen to satisfy the fan base, to trigger them into action, that comes and goes. And then there's yet another, well, when this thing happens, then I'll get involved. Kind of kicking the can down the road. In the last couple of years, there have been 2 to 3 names that a lot of Sun Devil fans and Sun Devil supporters were holding out their contributions until those names were no longer officially associated with Sun Devil athletics. Obviously, one of those names departed in 2022. Another one of those names departed just this past November. For folks who are thinking that President Crow is going to be removed from office, to ignite greater success at athletics or anything like that, I don't see that ever happening. He has a very, very impressive, series of accomplishments in what he's done in the academic space over the 20 or so years that he has been in office at ASU. So I think that is not necessarily a realistic view for any, again, just to basically say what I'm saying is if there are Sun Devil fans that say, I'm withholding my contributions until ASU gets a different president of the university, don't think that's going to be happening. Again, if folks have the means, if they have the passion of getting involved in Sun Devil athletics from a financial perspective is something that they are willing and able to do, you can't wait. You really can't wait. You can't wait and see. You can't say, okay, I like Kenny Dillingham, but let's see what happens in year 2. If they go to a bowl game, then I'll get involved, because the more you kick the can down the road, the more that you basically delay the ability for ASU to have success on the field. Not many people love this or like it, and I fall into that category as far as like fundraising year after year being what separates you from having the potential to be a good versus bad athletic team. Don't love it, but it is what it is. I hate using that phrase so much, but here we are with that. So kind of to circle that all back around in summation, I encourage Sun Devil fans who have the means and the passion to get involved. A lot have, especially in the last 2 months. but that needs to continue to improve so that there can be consistency, not just growth. You don't just want one big spike here, in late 23, early 24. You need to have that spike, but then get it to like a cruising altitude so that things don't dip and you don't have it be a year after year concern to where you have to continue to make these, out of the box initiatives and things like that just to get fan interest back involved. Folks need to continue to step up.
Yeah, so they have an action point to be more involved. But at the same point, when you get more involved, folks, resolve to be a little bit more patient, especially with Sun Devil football, because this is a process. We've documented over the last couple of years on the show just how deep a hole Sun Devil football was put in by some bad leadership, some mistakes, and obviously the NCAA investigation remains ongoing. And as of this record, still don't know exactly how things are going to shape up in terms of what punishment is ultimately levied at the Sun Devil football program. But things seem to be moving, at a slower pace, and maybe a slower than to your taste. But I think progress is being made in the right direction. It's going to take time, though. I mean, so as we saw down, we talked about on this program a few times. Just look down south and Jed Fish, 1-11 his first year, then a little improvement, and then in year 3, finally seen some big results. Now, not necessarily saying that ASU is going to all of a sudden, be a top 10 to 15 team in year 3 under Kenny Dillingham, but patience is required in a process like the one ASU is undertaking.
Yeah, and if you think that this talking point, the one before it, contradict one another, they certainly don't. To me, they complement one another. Maybe think of it like a business where you have, your initial investment, your seed money. You want to get that thing off the ground. But then even with that, you need to have just the sensibility to know that it's not all going to come together in a very short term. It might be, a few year process to where that becomes very successful, profitable, that sort of thing. So there's this combination of action with patience. And as it pertains to Sun Devil athletics, a similar thing. Like we talked about in the previous point, you need to get that action ignited to where this program has the support, has the resources that all of ASU athletics have, the support and resources that they need in order to be successful. But then understanding that success may not be immediate. I'm not talking like a 10-year plan or even a 5-year plan. I'm just saying if there are folks who get involved in a financial capacity here in January 2024, thinking that, okay, I'm going to do this only under the thought process that by doing this, ASU is going to win 8, 9, 10 games in 2024. And if they don't, then I'm never doing this again. I don't think that that's very reasonable. I'm not saying that fans necessarily have that view. But again, there needs to be a patience level involved that you can stockpile a few good recruiting classes and transfer classes when you have those resources and really put things together. As you mentioned, again, I know a lot of folks will dislike the comparison to anything that has to do with that school in Tucson, but the blueprint that has been put together by them in football is something that if it's duplicated in Tempe, a lot of people are going to be very, very happy about it. And oddly, to their credit, I mean, their improvement is kind of minimally done through the transfer portal. And so if ASU can emulate that as well, that would be wonderful. But, once again, you want to have the blend of proactive involvement on behalf of the fan base. You want to have the administration and the staff work in sync to be able to get things going in the right direction. But you got to have at least enough patience to see it through and not expect like an immediate gratification experience. Again, flipping things around from a 3-win team to a 10-win team. But you want to see those progression steps like we talked about at the very, very beginning, our football-centric resolutions. Getting around that 500 mark, I think would be very good, and then you build from there.
So you got to trust the process and really kind of see how things play out and take an active role in helping to get Sun Devil athletics and Sun Devil football back to where we all like to see it go. And of course, those are some of the things that we've like to see the Sun Devils resolve to do in 2024. And one of the things that they like to resolve to do this offseason was improve their depth at linebacker. And earlier you heard from Zyrus Fiaseu and talked about Keyshawn Elliott joining the program. Now's a good time to get to know another key piece coming over from Arkansas and is Jordan Crook, who spent a couple years with the Razorbacks. And You played some high-level high school football in the state of Texas for Rashad Sample's father at Duncanville. So here's a chance to get to know Jordan Crook. All right, here with new ASU linebacker Jordan Crook. Jordan, obviously, you hop in the portal after a couple years with the Razorbacks. What were the things that you were looking for in your next destination, and how did Arizona State kind of fill those needs for you?
Just looking for a bigger role, and just more in-depth coaching, honestly, and just being around like a complete staff that I know that has the best for me. Honestly, is what attracted me to ASU, and then the past ties with Coach Samp, that's like family to me. So, I know if he, telling me, these things, I know he wouldn't tell me wrong. So, like that meant a lot, and it kind of, that's what did it for me.
So obviously, Rashad Samples and, of course, playing for his father in high school, obviously you have that family connection, the relationship building there. Why has Rashad Samples been so effective as a recruiter, and what makes him special, and how is he able to kind of build those relationships with guys like you?
Honestly, like he's somebody you can relate to. Like even since like when I first met him, like my sophomore year, like when I first got to Duncanville, like he real, like he a real dude, and like he's somebody you really can relate to. Like he understands us. Like he ain't like honestly like really not too much older than us. So like he can relate, and like he know what we go through and the things. Like he just understands us, and like I said, he really just family to me, and like he done did a lot for me. You know what I'm saying, over the since my sophomore year, like since I know him.
So of course, being kind of that younger guy, he was a very young coach, and Kenny Dillingham thinks he's going to be pretty soon one of the youngest head coaches in college football. But you're going to be playing for one of the youngest head coaches in college football, and Kenny Dillingham. What kind of jumps out to you in this process of getting to know Coach Dillingham, what he brings as a leader of a major college football program?
Honestly, like just from the conversations I've had, he's another one that's like he can relate, like he can relate to his players, and I feel like when a coach can relate to his players, like that's you're gonna get the most out the players. It's and that's I feel like that's the biggest trait to have, like as a coach, like what I'm saying, if you can get the most out your players, and I feel like he, just talking to other players and people that I know on the team, and just other people and stuff like that, like they all saying the same thing, like he gonna get the most out of his players, and like he can relate, and like he's just somebody that he's just a cool guy and somebody that everybody want to be around.
So recently, you of course came to Tempe to visit and see the facilities and everything up close, meet these people face to face. What things made the biggest impressions on you during your official visit to Arizona State?
Really just the atmosphere. Just being around the staff, and the few players that I was around. One thing that I wanted to do going in, like I wanted to ask a lot of questions and ask like the same question to a lot of people, just to see what I would get. And like honestly, like when I was asking questions, throughout my visit, like they were all saying the same thing, like, and that was a big thing, just going into this process a second time, like just seeing things a little different. And I like when they all kind of was telling me the same thing, I was like, okay, I feel like, it's this some, everybody being real, that's and that's all I really can ask for.
What were some of those questions that you were kind of asking a bunch of people, and what was the feedback that you received that obviously it made a positive impression with you?
Things about like just the coaching style, just from the coaching style, to just the atmosphere, even off the field stuff, NIL, just everything. Honestly, like from A to Z, like I was just asking, and I was kind of getting the same answers, like just in how like the roles and the fit, and just talking to different coaches and the position and things like that, the scheme. Everybody was kind of saying the same thing. So I was like, okay, everybody on one accord, and that mean a lot.
So obviously you get that consistency in terms of the messaging and how everybody's experiences to this point. When you kind of look at just the overall kind of the vibe and the culture, it's obviously just the second year that Kenny Dillingham's been in place and the staff's been in place. But what's your read on what kind of culture he wants to bring in imprint on Sun Devil football?
Honestly, like just from talking to him, he want dogs. Like, you know what I'm saying? He want dogs, that's coachable and just love football, and that's one thing, he kept telling me over, like, that's what he want. He want dogs that love football. Like, that's all he want.
And of course, you're a guy who came up through, top level Texas high school football, and that's just, something that you just can't find anywhere else. How do you feel, going through, going through Duncanville especially, has prepared you for college football?
It definitely prepared me. Going into the SEC, like when I did, I feel like, just being in the Texas football, like, just playing in that, like, it's different. I feel like it prepares you. You play against the best. I was practicing against the best at the time. On the other side of the ball, like, it just overall, like, it prepared me for what, like, for this, honestly.
So, of course, with ASU moving to the Big 12 for the cup next season, obviously it's going to be a lot of exposure, even a couple games next year in Texas. How much of a factor was that, just knowing that with the conference move, you'll be much more prominent, in your home state?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like that's one thing that was big for me. To be able to come back to the South and be able to play against these teams mean a lot. And plus, like, for my family and stuff like that, getting to the games and things, like, so like it was definitely big for me. And I feel like, being in this conference, gonna be good for me to be able to showcase fully, what I can do.
And of course, Coach Samples and Brian Carrington as well have been really getting that Texas to Tempe pipeline rolling. A lot of fellow Texans already on the roster, more on the way, including yourself. What does it mean for you to obviously be surrounded by some fellow Texans in there, and how do you think that might help speed up the acclimation process for getting your feet wet out here in Arizona?
I don't know. I definitely think it's gonna be cool. You know what I'm saying? Just having people, like, just knowing you got other people, like, that came up, like, grew up and, like, played against and, like, seen and stuff like that. Like, just from being back home, like, what I'm saying, they kind of got some credit behind their name. You know what I'm saying? Like, just coming from Texas and stuff like that mean a lot. So, like, just going there and being there with them guys, like, what I'm saying, I feel like we gonna gel quick, no doubt.
What is it about coming up through Texas that makes maybe a Texas player different from a guy maybe from California, Florida, Georgia, whatever? What are the kind of the special unique traits about a guy who played his ball in Texas?
I feel like just the overall, like, the makeup, like, just from A to Z, like, the whole player, like, just from the mindset to the physical asset, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's what's different. And I feel like the moments, like, what I'm saying, that a lot of people don't get to, they get to college, like, we seen it in playoffs, like, in the state game, like, the big crowds, you know what I'm saying? Like, things like that, like, that was normal. So I feel like it prepared us when we got here. So, like I said, from A to Z, like, overall, like, just the whole makeup, like, like, that cat, like, he been through some. Honestly, like, he you know what I'm saying, he been in these type of moments. You can count on somebody like that. So I feel like that really would make us stand out.
Then, of course, as you alluded to earlier, you come up through top level Texas high school football, and you jump into the SEC for a couple of years, where they play some pretty good football there. How do you feel that your time with the Razorbacks, playing against SEC competition, has really kind of helped prepare you for the challenge ahead with the Sun Devils?
Oh no, yeah, I definitely feel like it's prepared me a lot. I definitely think it's gonna be a little different as far as the people up front. I don't think they'll be as big, but I feel like it definitely prepared me. It was hard-nosed football, a lot of running, a lot of striking, attacking, and so I feel like just overall, like, coming to this league, like, I'll be able to fully flourish and be sideline to sideline and plug gaps and things like that, within this defense, just being here at Arizona State.
Now, for any Sun Devil fans who might not have seen you in action for the Razorbacks, give our listeners and viewers a self-scouting report. Tell us what kind of skills and what kind of linebacker you are.
Are you just gonna get a fast, smart, heavy IQ, strong linebacker? That's quick, light-footed, fast-footed. My instincts off the charts. And I love football. And I'm coming to make a difference. No doubt.
And so when you, of course, you're playing for a defensive coordinator and Brian Ward, who knows or brings a defense that really kind of is built on attacking aggression and bringing a fight to an offense. What jumps out to you most about this defensive scheme that you're going to be playing, and especially kind of what it asks of the linebackers and how your skills are fit that role?
Just like honestly, like it's kind of like somewhat what we ran at Arkansas, but more of an NFL style defense. So I feel like just off the bat, I feel like I'm going to be pretty comfortable. Just after learning the terminology and things like that. So that said a lot too. And then just from talking to everybody and the things that they're doing, and then on third down, like a lot of people, bring up third down and the different things he likes to do on third down and different packages and things like that. And I feel like, with me, I feel like I'm a 3-down backer. So I feel like with these packages and things like that he's running, different blitzes and stuff like that, I feel like I'll be able to go out there and showcase what I can do, just as a 3-down backer.
Of course, getting here, you're going to be coached by A.J. Cooper with the linebackers. What, kind of stands out about Coach Cooper, and, what kind of things do you think he can do to help improve your game during your time here?
Coach Cooper, he's just a real genuine dude. Just from talking to him, and then, just from talking to the other players and stuff like that. He a hard coach, but he love hard too. And that's something I'm used to, what I'm saying? Like just coming up, I'm used to the hard coaching and stuff like that. That's something that I love. So and I feel like, he gonna make me a better, not just a better player, but a better person too. Just outside the ball. And I like just from like the first day I met him, when he came out here, like we just gelled. And then, he been calling me every day since, we've been, just locked in really, just ready for me to get up there and things like that. And I feel like, just with my play style and like his mindset, my mindset, like he kind of got that, like the underdog mindset. Like I feel like that's my mindset too. And I feel like we really gonna gel off of that because, it's he know my intentions, and I feel like he gonna have it. I feel like he gonna have the best for me.
How appealing is it to be part of something, as Kenny Dillingham tries to reshape and rebuild Sun Devil football, and, he's obviously, heading into year 2 in that process. How appealing is it to kind of maybe get in on the ground floor and be a part of that foundation that can, get Sun Devil football back to the heights in which it once was?
No, it definitely mean a lot, what I'm saying? Just trying to be a part of the change, what I'm saying? And being a part of the foundation, like it mean a lot, what I'm saying? Just to get it up and running, and I feel like, it's a lot of talent that's already there. We got a lot more coming in, and I feel like, we just come in and work. I feel like we gonna have a great program.
What's your read right now on kind of the Sun Devil linebacker room? Obviously, you and a couple others are coming in as FBS transfers. They got a couple guys that are coming that are returning this season. What's your makeup on obviously on an early stage of this group of 2024 linebackers?
No, definitely. I feel like we're gonna have a real good room. I'm ready to just get in and work with those guys. I haven't actually met any of the guys yet. Planning to get on the Zoom soon. But like I said, I'm just ready to get in and work with those guys and meet those guys and things like that. Like I said, just from watching the film and then, seeing the other commits and stuff like that on Twitter and things, I definitely feel like we're going to have a good room.
Looking ahead to this fall, obviously, it's going to be year 2 of Kenny Dillingham, your first in Tempe, and the program's first in the Big 12. What are some of the things that you would like to get accomplished and achieve in year 1?
Oh, man, the sky's the limit. Like I don't want to set the bar on nothing. I just want, honestly, I want us to take it game by game, and go from there. I don't want to put nothing on nothing. I just want to, like I said, just come in and work, take it day by day, and then, get the Saturdays and go from there. That's how I feel about it.
And of course, you're one of all the transfers, I believe, coming in with multiple years of eligibility left. So When you look at and kind of project to the future, whenever your college career comes to an end, what are the things that you want to look back upon and make sure that you were able to accomplish, as a college football player?
I definitely I want to go to I want to go to a big bowl game. I want to win. That's first. And then after that I got individual accolades. I want to accomplish All-American this year and next year. I do want to get 100 tackles both years, and I feel like I complete those things, and I'll be able to go on and play in the league.
And then, finally, this fall, come, the end of August when you're running out of Tillman Tunnel next to the big Pat Tillman statue in that maroon and gold to take on Wyoming. What do you think the thoughts and feelings are going to be going through your head at that moment?
New beginnings, fresh start, and just let loose, honestly, like, like just keep being me, honestly, just keep being me. That's what I've been telling myself. Just keep being me and, go from there, take it day by day and have fun, honestly.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our guests, Zyrus Fiaseu and Jordan Crook. Now, even though this is the off-season, the portal window might be closed, and the action on Sun Devil Athletics is still really fast and furious. Of course, the men's basketball team is getting underway. Hockey, baseball starting up soon. Wrestling, I know, is something that we'll be talking about a lot here on this program coming up soon. So make sure you are subscribed on all the podcast platforms and follow us on social media. You can follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Find us on YouTube and Facebook, and give me a follow at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy 42. And you talk about New Year's resolutions. The tip top of that list needs to be to support our wonderful sponsors. Of course, first starting with Jones Auto Group, who's been helping out the Sun Devil community, the state of Arizona, for more than 50 years. We're going to give you my guy, Parker Jones, the owner, the GM, a diehard Sun Devil fan, a third-generation ASU alum. Here's his cell number. If you're in the market for a new ride or even just kicking the tires on the thought, reach out to him, have a conversation with him. He's going to give it to you straight up. He's one of us. He's one of you. So if you're in the market for a new ride, hit up Parker Jones, 602-881-8998. Again, 602-881-8998 for Jones Auto Group. A huge thank you, of course, to the great folks at devilsdigest.com. Our guy Hode helped us out a ton in 2023, as he has since we started this whole thing well over a decade ago. You want to become a subscriber, get in the huddle of devilsdigest.com. That'll get you premium access across the Rivals.com network, as we talk about all the time. The news cycle never truly comes to a halt these days in college sports, so it's a great time to get involved in the huddle, even though the season's over, even though signing day is over for that December signing period. There's going to be a lot of news coming through the chutes, so you want to get it first on devilsdigest.com. A huge, huge thank you to our food partners. First, Burrito Express, which I'm sure you know by now, began in 1995 as a family-owned business, combining authentic recipes, competitive prices, and a comfortable dining atmosphere. You know they're very, very passionate with how they support Sun Devil athletics. They've got 6 Valley locations, 2 in Gilbert, 1 in Mesa, 1 in Chandler, 1 in Scottsdale in the Tempe location near Rural and University, about a half mile from Mountain America Stadium. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Burrito EXP and on TikTok at Burrito Express AZ. Also, a huge shout out to our wonderful friends at the Spaghetti Shack, which, of course, you know, not just Sun Devil owned and operated, but owned and operated by a former Sparky, the Sun Devil. There's a lot of passion there for those folks at Spaghetti Shack. They've got 3 locations, 1 up in Pine Top, 2 in Tempe, including 1 just about a mile from Mountain America Stadium. A lot of different combinations you can do now. They've revamped their menu, as we've talked about on several occasions. So check them out. You can catch them on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Spaghetti Shack, and on Twitter at Spaghetti_Shack. You can check them out online at thespaghettishack.com. And also, of course, a huge thank you to our wonderful friends at Cactus Sports. Even though the holidays have come and gone, if you've gotten some gear for yourself or for others, hey, keep on shopping. There's no such thing as having too much Sun Devil merchandise in your closet. The best place to get that is at Cactus Sports. They've got their Mill Avenue location at 514 South Mill Avenue, or you can, of course, shop online at cactussports.com. And last but certainly not least, Sun Devil Family Charities, one of our longtime sponsors. Actually, I believe the very first that we ever had, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's created primarily to help Sun Devils in need when they have medical issues, when they have financial needs that stem from medical issues. You can get involved. There's a number of ways to get involved. Obviously, financially certainly helps, but there are volunteer and sponsorship opportunities you can learn about online. You want to check them out. Check out their website. Check out their social media. They've got cornhole events throughout the year that you can participate in, where you can have some fun, win some money, and support this wonderful cause. You can learn all about it online on their website at sundevilfamily.org.
And also be sure to support the good folks at the good brand Home Field Apparel. Tons of new releases that they've dropped in recent weeks for basketball. And as Joe mentioned, if you didn't get necessarily everything on your holiday list, go spoil yourself. Treat yourself at homefieldapparel.com. And no better way to do that than with 15% off with our unique offer code SOTD23 at checkout at homefieldapparel.com. Premium licensed vintage collegiate apparel for 180 schools. Yes, including your Arizona State Sun Devils. Incredibly comfortable shirts, hoodies, joggers, quarter zip, tank tops, and much more, including awesome new Sun Devil bomber jacket in our 2-month window of what we call winter here. Perfect weight for that. So again, SOTD25 or SOTD23 will get you 15% off at homefieldapparel.com. And once you're done supporting our entire lineup of amazing sponsors, drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Joe and I will be back soon as we talk about some of the winter sports that are heating up.